Early meeting tonight. On March 4th. Zoning Board of Appeals called to order to talk about annual town meeting articles. So can I have a motion to open the meeting?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So we're all set?
Yes, sir.
One alternate. Okay.
All right, so as with every town meeting, we wanted to give you all the opportunity to review the town meeting warrant, see if there's any articles that you had particular interest in and wanted to make any recommendations on for town meeting, so we can get your recommendation in the FinCom book. So there's a total, I believe, 24 articles. We also put in here one particular article that may be of interest to this board as a presentation of the planning board just heard yesterday relative to Article 20, which is the Specialized Energy Code. We have some folks from the Clean Energy Sustainability Committee here today. If you all had any questions about, what's going on with this particular article, what would the impacts be if the town were to adopt it? So we have folks here from the Clean Energy group here. If you have any questions. Any other article you want to discuss this evening? Jeff and I are here.
Okay. I think the new stretch code clean energy thing is kind of it's foremost in our minds. I think at this point in time in the town of Westford, given the power requirements or the lack of power requirements that the town may have, I, as one member of the board, don't feel that this is the right time to adopt this. I think what exists today under the stretch code, I think people can build an energy efficient house at a reasonable cost. And I just think this no fossil fuel is something that I don't believe has been researched enough. I'm old enough that in the 70s, there were tons of houses built with electric heat. I owned one. And Jay's snickering because he worked for the electric company. Yeah, oh boy. But the difference being at that time, you had what they called a J meter. So the rate was different than your normal electricity. And it was it seemed good at the time and it just didn't work out. And I just think that the same thing is happening here, is that this seems good. However, we've been made aware lately of the lack of capacity that the town has. And so I don't feel good about saying to somebody, you have to abide by this new no fossil fuel, and you have a piece of property you'd like to do something on or do something to your house. And of course, if you go beyond 50% of what you have or build brand new, now you're saying you have to do this, but we're not sure you're going to be able to do this because the power company can't supply you the power. So that's my spiel. I'll open it up to the board. I know everybody has an opinion of it.
So I wear a couple different hats. Used to wear a couple different hats. From the public safety side, I'm not a fan of putting the rooftop solar on. We've actually had incidents in town where debris collects underneath the panels and the nice little chipmunks and squirrels get up there and they start nibbling away, and we've actually had some fires start. So because of that, plus they've changed the code a little bit so to give the firefighters more access around the perimeter, the eave of the roof and whatnot. But I still think it's a case that it shouldn't be a mandate thing. If someone wants to put solar panels on their roof, they should be able to. As it is now, the house has to be framed so that it'll support the weight of the panels. I think that's as far as you need to go. If someone wants to put them on, they're more than welcome to. I don't think it should be mandated. As far as the energy code kind of piggyback on what Scott was saying, the International Energy Code has already reduced. Were saying that this code cycle, you're gonna need R60 in your attic or roof. And now they've come back and said it's not economically feasible, and they've already cut that back to R49, where it is now. So everybody's got these great ideas, but I don't think they're really being thought out and tested enough. So I'm not a fan of it either.
Okay.
Well, obviously, I've been in the industry for a while, and a lot of the, at least from our perspective, at the company, was a lot of it was regulated by the state and pushed by the state. You know, as far as providing incentives and things like that, and there was an extremely large push to do electrification. You know, put heat pumps in all the homes. And I guess, to Scott's point, that push is the capacity you're gonna match the demand. And that could be a question that, a lot of towns should ask, and have that answered. But one of my concerns too is that federal regulations kind of pushed a lot of this in the past. And now there seems to be somewhat of a change with the federal direction. And is that going to have an impact on fossil fuels? To me, I think the market should dictate what people do, not the government to tell them what to do. Like, if the market says the best thing is to put a heat pump in, then that's what they'll do. If the market says it's cheaper to put in natural gas, that's what they do. So I just think that sometimes you've got to let the market take over, not sometimes have the government push a certain situation. That's all.
Anybody else from this end of the table?
I'm not for it. I'm not for it at all. I don't like solar. I think solar is a Band-Aid. And some of you're not gonna be able to build an affordable home in town with this super stretch code. The numbers that I heard last night at the plan board meeting, they don't add up. And I think it's just gonna push everything right through the roof.
Especially if we're trying to gain affordable housing
Gain
units.
affordable housing units, exactly. It's
not gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen.
Happening. That's the problem we're running into down in that Powers Road corridor, is that, there's proposed MBTA housing down there. And there's gonna be some affordables involved in that project.
Yep. You take the big houses down off of Nutting Road.
Yeah,
If those houses went all electric, you'd be looking at a 600 amp 3-phase service to each house. Just to supply the
Yeah.
electricity to them.
Yeah.
You don't have that kind of infrastructure down there on that road to handle that. The heat pumps, the load that they're gonna put on, you're gonna have brownouts.
yeah. So I don't know if everybody was aware, but the MBTA housing projects that were down on Powers Road are kind of at a standstill, I guess, right now, because Mass Electric or Eversource or whoever the hell it is, National Grid, they went to them after the fact instead of going to them before the fact and said, we don't have the capacity to supply your power to do what you want to do. All right, Jeff, you tell me the story.
It's not a story. So there's been two applicants for multifamily housing. The 37 Powers Road application that is actually going before the planning board on March 17th. They were told that they do have adequate capacity. It's the Regency site who also submitted a work request. They were told that they lacked capacity. And our understanding is that the 37 Powers Road one was told yes because they were the first ones to put in the work request. So of this circuit, at that time, the way they analyzed it, they determined they had adequate capacity for that project, but they lacked adequate capacity for a second project of, significant multifamily housing. So it was the Regency that was told no, and it was 37 Powers that they said adequate.
So it's
First
a,
to the table.
What's that?
The first to the table had
First to the
adequate.
Yes,
yeah.
it's like first come, first served.
so it's a vicious cycle. We're mandated to do this MBTA housing. We've got one possible. The other sites that we've kind of like narrowed in on and said, okay, you can do it here, here, and here, may not be able to. And then, so what do we go to the state and cry because we have no electricity, we can't build them?
We are engaging in dialogue with the governor's office and trying with the utility companies to, the first step would be to have a study done. We're trying to get as large a study area for Westford as we can, but the study has to be funded. Right now, National Grid was looking for each individual project to fund their own study. And we thought it made much more sense, and Clean Energy supported this approach, to ask for a group area or larger study that would look at the problem more holistically, because our overlay district is the same. There's a lot of overlap with the underutilized commercial office space. It's in proximity to the commercial recreation overlay district, that would be new growth. So we thought it made a lot more sense to look at this bigger picture than one particular lot at a time. So we're aggressively trying to pursue that, but we're still early in that process, and it'll be some time before we can give you a meaningful update.
And so what's the cost of the study?
We were told that for one particular site, it'd be $50,000 to do the study. It would take approximately 6 months. Then the next step would be to engineer a solution, and that would take sometime between 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
And then, once there was a solution, that it could take an estimated 2 years to implement, provided that it was funded. And there were no exact numbers given for the upgrade or improvements. There was a range suggested, but until you do the detailed study and have the solution engineered, you don't know actually what the fix is. But they estimated somewhere between $3 and $10 million to do the upgrades for the Regency to get the capacity, but we don't know, would that only help the Regency, would it help the whole circuit, part of this, we don't have that information
And
yet.
then who pays for that?
They would be looking for the project applicant to pay for that right now.
The applicant pays for it?
That's what the direction that they were given. So we're looking to find other funding sources to do a more holistic approach, rather than a one at a time.
Fund that study, I couldn't quite hear, did you say 15 or
50, 50. 50.
Thank you.
That's gonna take 6 months.
Yes.
Typically, they do a study, the engineer determine what the capacity is and what the demand is down the future, and then after that, then they would have to determine the cost to provide that.
Yep.
And then once the cost to provide that's there, then actually
Implementing takes time.
implement the actual construction, which is, takes time, but it usually is that cost.
It doesn't get passed down to the ratepayers.
That would be, unless things have changed, but that would be the responsibility of the applicant, because that's what, they need that particular power, and that, in order to get that, the capacity to them, so they wouldn't have to do that if it wasn't for them, you know what I'm
What
saying?
would the cost of the unit be at the Regency if the construction cost, the land cost, and now they're throwing another $10 million bill on it for the power of the construction?
Potentially up to 10 million, but again,
Potentially.
so we don't, those are presumed to be rental units at this point, so it's not. I mean, you could take 5 million rough and divide by 300 and, get, but I mean, the reality is I don't think there would be a project in that case, like.
Right.
They're still working through septic issues, and to have call it
Unforeseen $5 million.
3 to 10 million is,
Whatever it is.
their investors will not,
It's a lot of money for 300 units,
Right,
ton of money.
it is. But what we don't know is, would that fix also help with B and C and D, or is it, so we just, until there's a study, we don't necessarily have that information.
So this study, the $50,000 study, this is covering more than one, this is covering an area, not just one property, right?
Well, no, we can't say that either. So this one applicant, it would be $50,000 for their study.
Okay.
And when we had a brief conversation with National Grid, it may or may not solve other people's problems. It would be the solution to get them their capacity. If someone down the road, if they determined they didn't have capacity, they too would have to do a $50,000 study. So we're just trying to say, look, we know there likely be some potential development in a concentrated area. Does it not make sense to do a larger study? But we would need to get enough locations to sign on to do that study. But obviously, if applicants have investors maybe are not keen to pay $50,000 to find out how many million it might be out for, it's a big variable for them.
It's not just on the housing side, I mean, it also impacts anybody looking to do commercial development as well.
Commercial
with
side
some of
as
the
well.
vacant properties along that area. New, like the proposal for Neshoba Valley Ski was proposing to add both housing and new recreation opportunities in town. So it's all new demand.
Interestingly, the auditor has come up with a suit against what Middleborough's strapping with the auditor, saying that this whole MBTA funding was unfunded. So the legislature, they go to the legislature, I guess it's a court case saying that this whole MBTA legislation is basically underfunded, therefore illegal, according to what the auditor has said to Middleborough. Middleborough's going forward with a suit on it because it's underfunded legislation, basically. Another court case coming out on the whole MBTA committee. Legislation. Probably going nowhere, but
Well,
underfunded was a big word that they come around
Right.
with all the time for this whole legislation.
it's time, it just takes time. So I see some members of the audience. Anybody have any comments, pro, con? Please give us your name at the microphone.
Hi, Mike Berlinski, Chair of the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee. Thanks for letting me speak. I'm very excited to see the interest of the board. Given that, I think it would have been great to schedule some time for our presentation, because I think you may have shared with it, but we do have a presentation we've been sharing with different boards and committees, and then had time after our presentation to answer questions or to receive this kind of feedback. Having said that, I did want to make a few comments just to clarify some things that I heard tonight. So with the grid issues was one of the first and major topics of tonight. We agree that it's a big concern, a big problem, and our committee is dedicated to working with town staff and other committees to try to get more information and address the problem. We actually think adoption of the specialized code will help the problem, not hurt the problem, because it encourages more energy efficient buildings. So it should reduce energy demand and reduce the burden on the grid. So that's why we think it's part of the solution, not the problem. We can get into some of the details with time in terms of, is it peak demand or average demand, and if there's solar on a building, when does the peak demand occur? But again, in general, the specialized code is for very energy efficient buildings, which reduces demand. So we think that's a good thing, not part of the problem. But then there's a question about, are we talking about all electric buildings? And so again, just to clarify, the specialized code does not only allow all electric buildings, there's multiple paths in each segment of the market, so you could do mixed fuel or all electric. So it's not only all electric. Under mixed fuel, there are some requirements like solar and pre-wiring, but there are choices to go multiple paths. So it does not only require all electric. For cost, there is some information that it may be slightly increased cost or may be neutral. Also there are incentives to bring down some of that upfront cost. But then again, being energy efficient, being very resilient with lower operating costs. So there are other benefits to the occupants. So again, solar is not mandated, but solar is required for certain paths of mixed fuel. Sorry. So I just wanted to share those points, and again, it's in our material based on the State Department of Energy Resources material and other research we've done. Again, 48 cities and towns in Massachusetts have adopted the specialized code. We actually spoke with a select board member in Acton today who was one of the champions of that. Acton is one of the early adopters, and they haven't had any opposition or regrets on that. Acton actually is one of 10 towns that went even further than the specialized code to do the no new fossil fuel code. So there's 10 cities and towns in the state that actually went further than the specialized code. Acton is one of them. Again, we heard no regrets from the select board. So that actually does not allow fossil fuels in new development under certain conditions, but Acton actually has gone a step further. Again, no regrets from the select board there. So specialized is one step down from that, where you do have different options. So thanks again. We're here, and Beth Perkins, Tom Teller here, and have more of the details if there's any other questions on any of the details. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions? Doesn't appear to be. So the purpose of us tonight is to say we either support or do not support this special energy code. So can we have a motion to say we support it? We have a motion to say we do not support it. We have no motions at all?
I'd make the motion, but I can't vote.
That's okay.
Actually, I don't believe, unless he's seated, he can make.
Okay, so we need a motion from someone else. Either
I'll
just,
make a motion not to support it.
okay. We have a second.
One second.
All right,
Discussion.
okay. We'll take a vote. Scott?
Did you want discussion on the motion? Is
I
that?
said, is there any further discussion?
Oh,
no,
sorry.
is there any-
On the motion, is there no further?
No further discussion, no?
Okay.
So what are we voting? What,
You're voting to either support the new stretch code or not support it. So we're voting right now not to support it.
I agree.
Okay, Jim?
I do agree.
Ian? Jay? I agree, and I also agree. So 5-0, we do not support it. Okay, were there any other items that we need to address tonight?
No, sir.
Okay. Short and sweet. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for your point of views. We appreciate it. And we'll see what happens.
Motion to.
Motion to adjourn.
So, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.